Is the court of public opinion important? With Wayne Pollock, episode 120. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. It's Thursday and we have another amazing guest interview for you. My guest today is Wayne Pollock. Now, I just want to share with you, I have no idea who Wayne Pollock was before our paths met. How did our paths meet? I got an email from Wayne, and I want to share this with you because I want you to learn from what he did to get my attention. If you want to go out there in the marketplace and get highlighted on somebody else's show, somebody else's Facebook Live, somebody else's podcast, a radio station, anything like that, imagine how many emails they must get with pitches for somebody to be on their show, right? So I want to read to you something that Wayne sent me. So he sent me an email out of the blue. I received it the beginning of April. So it's a couple of months later that this is finally happening. But the subject line of his email was longtime listener, first time caller. And he right away opened up with just letting me know that we have something in common. And then he says, I've been listening to your podcast for the past 6 months or so and wanted to commend you on what I'm sure have been Herculean efforts getting the podcast up and running, doing the summit this past December, and doing all those COVID-19 related live streams. You are doing one hell of a job connecting with legal influencers and building your brand and the Profit with Law brand. Now, you can right away see that he's done something that separates him from most of the emails that I get, which is, first of all, he made me feel really good, right? He complimented me on the efforts that we're doing, but he also, in one sentence, showed me that he's not only just found my podcast, looked for who to contact, and sent me an email, but he knows everything that I've been doing over the past 6 months or the past year or whatever it is. And even if that was just research and he actually wasn't actually listening to the episodes for 6 months, by doing this, by putting this out there, he's demonstrated to me that he is very much in tune with my brand and therefore knows what my audience would want. And here comes the pitch. And, here's what I do. And, would it make sense to have you on the podcast? So I wanted to share that with you not because I want to tell you how to pitch me if you want to be on the podcast. If you're a listener, send me a heartfelt email. Let me know your story. We'll get you on the show if it makes sense for us. So I don't think you need to have a strategy for me to get in front of me, but I think that you do need to have a strategy to get in front of other people. And if you're not a listener or you're not a reader of their blog, you have to go and read some posts. You have to go and listen to some episodes so that you have something to share, to say, hey, look, I've checked out your podcast. I've listened to a few episodes. I really like what you're doing here, and here's what I liked, and just demonstrate that you've paid attention before trying to get their attention. I think that that's amazing that Wayne did this, and I wanted to make sure to highlight that. So having done that, you don't know anything about him, and I'm going to let Wayne tell us who he is. I know he's got a couple of companies, Copo Strategies, which stands for Court of Public Opinion, Law Firm Editorial Service. Wayne, why don't you give us your background, a little bit of an idea of who you are, how you've come to be the owner of these companies and what those companies do, and then we can dive into some actual questions about your journey and the stuff that you do. But first of all, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Moshe. And with that kind of introduction, I feel like I should pull a George Costanza from that classic Seinfeld episode and just quit while I'm ahead and say thank you and just end the episode. But I am an attorney with a public relations background. I spent about 4 years working in public relations. Then I went to big law. That PR experience got me interested in law. I had a large law firm client as a PR client. That inspired me to go to law school. I went to Georgetown law school, graduated in 2009, spent 6.5 years at a large international law firm here in Philadelphia. And while I was there, I saw, like so many entrepreneurs and so many listeners to this podcast, I saw an opportunity to do something with my background, my public relations and legal background, that I hadn't seen done before, and I hadn't seen it positioned the way that I was going to do it. So I left my firm back in 2016, launched my own firm, which is a hybrid legal services and communications firm. And on the legal services side, I litigate high-profile cases. I come in as part of the legal team, and I only work on cases that will draw media attention and public interest, or have already generated that kind of interest. And the goal is to help the attorney I'm working with, the attorneys and the clients, resolve those cases favorably in the court of public opinion. We see all the time where the court of public opinion in legal disputes tends to have a heavy role in how those cases will be resolved. Certainly, it affects the business interest and reputational interests of the people and the organizations involved. And then on the consulting side, as I said, it's legal services and consulting. On the consulting side, I help attorneys with their media work, their media relations work for their law firms. I'm doing a lot more referral marketing in the past year than I had originally done, and we'll get into that in a moment. So I have the legal services and communications firm. I also do ghostwriting under the law firm editorial service, which is for attorneys who know they should be writing blog posts, bylined articles, client alerts under their own names, but they're just too busy to do it. And for that reason, I'm hired to write under their name and provide the content they would if they didn't have billable work keeping them busy and preoccupied.
Wow. So it sounds, I mean, these are all things that sound intriguing, sound like we should dive into, but it's also a lot. So kudos to you for being able to juggle those balls and to keep all of that going. Now, let me ask you, let's start with the referrals, and then we'll take it from there to the court of public opinion, and then we'll talk about ghostwriting, and if we have time to cover all of them, see how that goes. So when it comes to referrals, I mean, we've had a guest in the past, Stacey Brown Randall, who the title of that episode is getting referrals without asking, or getting business referrals without asking. I forget how we titled it. And I'm actually looking to see if I can find that episode number really quick, and I'll probably jump back in a few minutes with it if it doesn't, pop up here really on my first flick through my podcast feed. And while I have another one that popped up in front of me, so we also had a freelance writer on our podcast. So episode 28, we had using a freelance writer for your law firm blog with Laura Pennington Briggs. So if we don't cover in depth the freelance part, definitely check that out to get an idea of the power of having a freelance writer. And then you at least know 2 freelance writers that you can look to get that written. And I'm sorry, I'm looking away from the camera for anybody who's watching this on video, because I'm going through literally on my phone our podcast feed to find the Stacey Brown Randall episode. It's episode 25, Generating Referrals Without Asking with Stacey Brown Randall. Great episode where she talks about being strategic and being systematic with getting referrals. And I know that that's something that you're passionate about because attorneys live on referrals and they don't have a strategy around it. So let's talk about that and talk about what your thoughts are on it and how you help with that.
You're absolutely right. There is an enormous disconnect between what attorneys know is normally a sizable portion of how they get new business, referrals. A disconnect between how they get referrals and what they actually do to cultivate those relationships. They know referrals equal new business, new client matters, but they very, very rarely have a strategic approach to that portion of their business. And referral, when I say referral marketing, oftentimes we're talking about other attorneys, but there is for the right practice group, there is a non-attorney referral program you can put into place too. And you're thinking about, whether it's family law, whether it's personal injury, the people that come into contact with your clients or your would-be clients, those are referral sources too. They can be cultivated and they can be developed as people who are now part of your tribe and referring you business. To me, the reason why attorneys often overlook referral marketing is because they don't think there can be any strategy. They know about PPC, they know about SEO, they know about Facebook ads and other means to target and attract prospective clients, but they don't really think about how to approach referral attorneys and other referral sources. And it's my belief and my knowledge that any marketing tactic that an attorney uses to attract clients can be repurposed and tweaked to attract referral sources. And Moshe, I'm going to do something I haven't heard before on your podcast, so forgive me, but I am so positive that this is true and this is the case that I want to make a bet with your audience. Is that cool?
Sure. Let's
Okay.
go for it. I'm gonna make it bet. I love some exciting spin on it. You know, so people who imagine they're listening to this episode right now and they're out for a run or they're in the shower or they're driving, their ears just perked up. Hey, what's going on here? You know, let's pay some more attention. So go ahead.
So let's make a friendly wager that if any listener to this podcast now or in the future, if you have a marketing tactic you employ to get clients and you come to me and challenge me to turn that into a tactic that you could use to generate referrals from attorneys or non-attorneys, if you stump me, if I can't give you a prompt answer about how to repurpose that tactic, I will make a $100 donation in your name to the charity of your choice. So really it's a win-win for everyone, where if I can give you, the listener, this tactic and can repurpose it for you, you now have a tactic in your tool belt you could use to help build your practice. And if you stump me, then a charitable organization gets the benefit of your knowledge and my lack thereof. So that's my wager for here. But I'm serious when I say
how would somebody reach out to you to take you up on this? Let's cover that real quick.
Sure.
Is there an email address or a social channel?
You can email me at Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, Wayne at Copo Strategies, C-O-P-O strategies.com.
Awesome. And we'll link that up in the show notes, folks, so you don't have to remember it if you're and doing any of the things that I just said you might be doing while listening to this episode. All right. So, Wayne, I got it. We can, any marketing strategy could work to get referrals. What does somebody do? Like how do you measure that? How do you keep track of it? How do you identify who your referral sources are? Are there specific steps? Is there like some sort of strategy you use to walk people through, organizing that and being strategic about it?
Like most things, it helps to have a strategy here. And for me, I try to encourage the clients I work with to first be strategic about who you're talking to. For some practices like personal injury, if you have a general personal injury practice, then perhaps you have a wider net you could cast in terms of attorneys who could send you business. But if you're if you're a civil rights attorney and you enjoy excessive force cases, wrongful arrest cases that involve the police and law enforcement, then it makes sense for you to start building a relationship with criminal defense attorneys in your area, in your state, and build that relationship, because those people are the people who are most likely to generate the referrals and really have the clients come to them first. And then they can refer them to you. What's nice about referral marketing is that it's the attorney sending you the referral that's done the work, that's spent the money on PPC, on SEO, on the Facebook ad. Their intake people have spent the time vetting this would-be client to determine if it's a right fit. And then they send it to you, send the client to you, the opportunity to you, packaged up with a bow on it. And when they send you that would-be client, already built in to that transfer, that handoff, is credibility and trust, because why else would that attorney send you that business if that attorney didn't value you, your knowledge, your expertise, and have some kind of relationship with you? So from a strategic perspective, the first thing to do is figure out who am I talking to, who do I think would be the right audience of attorneys or non-attorneys to build my referral network. And then you want to think about how do I connect with them? And here's where the parallels start. If you would be creating a blog post or a client alert or some type of content that would talk to a client, a would-be client, about their legal issue, you can use that same kind of content, but now you're focused on how the attorney, the type of attorney you want to target, the kinds of issues they should be thinking about that can help them recognize when their clients have a claim or an issue that you can deal with. Let me give an example. One of my clients is it's a consumer law firm. So they are helping their clients when they have credit report problems, or they are misclassified as a terrorist on their credit report, or there's false information on an employment report or a background check for housing. They tend to have a lot of issues with people, or people tend to have a lot of issues who were formerly incarcerated or charged with a crime but never incarcerated. And what we're working on together is figuring out how to talk to criminal defense attorneys about this issue, this background check, faulty information, that helps those criminal defense attorneys understand when their clients have an issue for which they could send to this law firm. So there's strategy in terms of who you're talking to, but there's also strategy in how you're talking to them and what you're talking to them about. And the content could be blog posts, CLEs, speaking engagements, newsletters. It goes down the list of the normal tactics, but they're all repurposed because you're educating these people, these attorneys, as to what you do, with the idea that by building a relationship, those referrals will float two ways. And there's a nice psychological benefit from referrals. I don't know how often you feel this, but I certainly feel this feeling when someone asks me if I know somebody. Do you know an accountant who could help me? I'm an attorney. I run a law firm. Do you know an accountant who specialize in law firms? Well, yeah, I know Moshe. So let me email Moshe, introduce you to. I look great because I'm able to help the client. I feel good because I'm able to help the client because I know you and I can send them your way. So there's a nice psychological benefit, obviously, from being someone who helps other people. Of course, there's reciprocity where you have referral sources referrals flowing both ways. I'm helping you, you're helping me. So again, you have to be strategic, because if you take the shotgun approach, which is everybody is a referral source, that certainly has merit. But it's hard to be strategic, and it's hard to be able to focus on your marketing when you are scattershot. Again, just like when we're talking about client marketing.
So I resonate very, very heavily with what you're sharing. I think that it's really important to identify that person up front, who is going to be that referral source, what not person or type of person. And definitely a good starting place is other attorneys. No matter what practice area you're in, there's always going to be other attorneys who get contacted because they have a family member, they have a community member, they have somebody who knows they're an attorney who says, hey, do you know so-and-so? I get it all the time. I get people coming to me all the time. Hey, you have law firms as clients. I need an attorney for this. Do you know somebody? And I've toyed with the idea of creating a, profit with law referral network where people can just enter their information in, because I don't know. Other than my direct coaching clients, I don't know who's in my audience. I don't know, who I can be sending business to. And often I have to tell the person, sorry, I don't know anybody directly. I'd have to do a research project to find somebody. And, it's just not, it's not feasible for me to do. But it's definitely something that, I wish that I could act on, every time that opportunity arises. Let me ask you this though. One of the things you talked about reciprocity with referrals, and that's not always possible, right? Especially when you're dealing with a specific sphere, right? So let's say I'm a estate planning attorney and I'm going to financial planners. If I go to 10 financial planners to send me business, I can't send business to 10 financial planners because I can only send, when somebody comes to me, I can only send to one, right? So reciprocity is not always an option. Is that a requirement for getting referrals? I'm going to ask you another question on this before you answer, because I think they go together. The other thing is when somebody refers business to me, are we talking about a relationship where I am compensating them financially for sending the referral, or are we talking about getting referrals where there's no strings attached? They're just literally sending me somebody, and it's up to me how I want to acknowledge and thank them for sending me the referral.
Well, unfortunately, my answer is it all depends. And the reason, let me take your second question first. The reason it depends is based on where you are practicing law and based on your ethical rules that control in the jurisdictions that you're practicing. You typically cannot provide value to someone sending you a case unless you are paying a referral fee in a jurisdiction where that is allowed. So for the attorney to attorney referrals, you, in some cases, can pay out a portion of your fee. Typically, if we're talking about a firm that pays out referral fees, it's normally a third of the fee they take in from a client. Sometimes you'll hear, especially plaintiff's attorneys, personal injury attorneys, say, gee, I don't want to pay that referral tax because if I am getting 300 grand on a referral on a case that was referred to me, I have to pay out a third of that, 100 grand, to the referring attorney. And they view that as a cost. But unfortunately, I think that's just baloney. You didn't have that 300 grand before that referral came to you. So instead of being up 3 or being up 200K, I think it's still a pretty good result. You're right.
I think that all depends on the work involved to get that 300,000, right? When it's a percentage of a number, and it does not always coincide with the value provided. In other words, a PI firm might be willing to spend $5,000, $10,000 on a lead. But if you went to them and said, hey, are you willing to spend $100,000 on a lead? They would say no matter what no matter what the possible size is, because you don't know what the possible size is up front, which is why it's geared as a percentage. So I don't think that it needs to be a flat percentage. I think that you can have a percentage that changes based on the size of the case. I was talking to one of my clients recently who has the potential to refer business to personal injury attorneys, and she's like, yeah, I have a number of personal injury attorneys that are willing to give me 50%. So that's what I'm asking. And I think that that's great for the $10,000 cases, the $15,000 cases. I think that when you get to the cases that are creating those large figures, there's a lot of work that goes into creating that money. And the value that you're providing by bringing that client through the door doesn't go up exponentially because it's a larger case. So I think that there has to be room on both sides to discuss that. I also think that I know for a fact that there's a lot of jurisdictions where you cannot pay a referral fee, but you do have a loophole where you can pay an of counsel fee. So basically you have the attorney that brings the case in do some level of work with that case. So you assign them some level of responsibility and work they need to do so that you could justify giving them a fee in the process. And that works in a lot of jurisdictions. So if you're thinking about doing that, but I'm more intrigued by the possibility of not having to have to pay a referral fee. Like I believe that there's a way to just have these coming to you without having any strings attached, and and just getting it because they know you, because they respect you, because you're staying top of mind. And I'm just curious about what your thoughts are on that. Is that just a pipe dream, or do you think that somebody can strategically set themselves up that way to not have to be giving a fee for these referrals?
Well, so let me get back to that, just what you said. The reason why I said it depends is because it truly depends. I know that the practice here where I'm standing in Philadelphia is that personal injury firms, if they get referred a large case, it could be, let's say, for ease of numbers here, if it's $1 million case and the attorneys who litigated the case are getting a third, so they're getting 33% of that recovery, they will pay a third of that. That is the terms of the referral. They'll pay that to the referring attorney. The attorney gets a nice fat check for providing that referral. In some jurisdictions, the attorney has to do more than just refer. They actually have to be somewhat involved in litigation. So it all depends. On the flip side, though, I can't imagine that a criminal defense attorney who might be taking on a $5,000 flat fee case, and of course, they're doing flat fee because they listen to this podcast and they know the benefit of flat fees versus the hourly rate. They are not going to pay a portion of that. I'd be shocked if a family law attorney paid a portion of a $5,000 estate plan or some other kind of product or service to the attorney who referred them. So I don't think you always have strings attached. I think in personal injury, it's different because there's so much money at stake. But there is a give and take that happens with referral sources where just because I don't give you a case today, tomorrow, next week, next year, it doesn't mean we can't have a relationship. And it doesn't mean that I can't provide value somehow to you. Whereas maybe instead of referring to you a case, maybe I'm referring to you a would-be employee or a consultant or an expert or some other person that either professionally or personally can help you. I think that is the nature of these referral relationships, where they might start as purely business professional relationships, but they grow into personal relationships if you're nurturing and if you're cultivating the relationship. So it isn't just a tit for tat. I've given you one in 2020. I expect one in 2021 with a case to be named later in 2022. It doesn't happen like that. It's more fluid. But the idea is that you are really providing a service to the people sending you referrals by being someone who they can send clients to. And the clients come back to that original referrer and say, thanks so much. You gave me Moshe's name and he was immensely helpful. I appreciate it so much. It reflects as well on the referrer as it does on the referee.
Awesome. All right. So talking about referrals, because I want to make sure we cover the other items that we discussed. Is there anything else that we need to know? I mean, you said start with identifying who it is that's going to be your referral source, which is obviously a really good start, because at least now I know what my direction is. I know who I'm gonna go after. But what does this look like? Are you just picking up the phone and saying, hey, let's have lunch? I'd like you to refer me cases, or is there more to it? What does that look like in your mind as far as how you take them on this journey of becoming a referral source for you?
It starts with a communication. Probably not a LinkedIn connection request, typically either an email, or I try to tell my clients, I push them toward snail mail. I think that just looks different with a handwritten envelope and a real stamp. And part of the process here of the strategy is figuring out who you can target so that you have something in common from the get-go. It's much easier for you to reach out to someone who has either a complementary practice area or is in a similar position in life that you are to you, to help build a relationship. So for example, if you are a female owner of a criminal law firm, I would think that it makes sense for you to look at the kinds of firms that could refer you business and then zero in on the women-owned firms of that kind. And that way, when you're communicating with them, you instantly have, as I did with you, you instantly have some common ground that breaks the ice and at least gets them to read further down in that opening communication. So I would advise that you start with a written communication, not very long, no more than a page, but something that explains who you are and what's in it for the would-be referring attorney. There's a joke in the marketing world about what is your prospect's favorite radio station? It's WIIFM. What's in it for me? So you have to make sure that you are positioning yourself as someone who can assist the person you're targeting, not simply as someone who's looking to get referrals. But start that communication, and then you're right, you cultivate that. And as the relationship warms up, hopefully, then we're talking about phone calls, video chats, in-person meetings when that becomes possible again. It's a relationship like anything else, and you can start it by electronics or by letter, but you're going to need some more human face-to-face time if you really want it to develop. And a referring attorney doesn't have to be someone who sends you a case every week, every month, or every year. I mean, the firms that I work with, if an attorney has sent them a case within the past 3 to 5 years, that's considered someone in the referring attorney network, someone we should be communicating with and reaching out to on a regular basis. So start with the strategy that makes it easier for you to actually target them and communicate with them because you have some common ground, and then take it from email or the written letter to a face-to-face, at least a voice call, maybe a video call, and develop the relationship from there.
Yeah, and with common ground, I mean, I guess you can go and check out their About Me page on their website. You can look at any content they're putting out, see if they're sharing anything personal. Obviously, you could tell if somebody's a man or a woman, but beyond that, I mean, there's other commonalities like where do you live or where are you from or where, do you have kids? Are you divorced? Are you married? What's your favorite sports team? Do you pay attention to sports? What do you pay attention to? Do you go to the opera? Are you a Broadway show person? And just getting something from them where you have a common interest. And I don't think that you should vein, a common interest. In other words, I don't think that you should say, hey, I love Broadway shows too, and you've never been to one. That's probably not a good tactic to take. But you find the common ground, and it gives you that opportunity to have something to do together in the future also, especially if it's a hobby kind of thing. If it's like an athletic thing, like, hey, I love yoga. This other person loves yoga. That's a great common ground because now we can go to yoga together, and it's not just, okay, I'm taking time to bond with this person. I'm doing something I'm going to do anyway, and I'm bonding with this person, which is really strategic. So I love that idea of finding the common ground. And it could be literally anything. Here, I'm gonna share what Wayne shared with me. I just didn't want to, I didn't want to, make it sound like I'm only connecting with Jewish people. So, but it was Passover that he sent it to me. He goes, first off, happy Passover, 2 nights in, and the matzah is already taking a toll on my body. I hope you are faring better. So, that was his common ground. That was his opening statement. Hey, look, I'm Jewish too. I'm celebrating Passover like you. And then here, let me launch into my spiel. So he could have easily made that connection simply from my name. Moshe is Hebrew for Moses. It's pretty obvious that I'm Jewish, and Rosenblum Rosenblum Amsel. Amsel you may not know whether that's a Jewish name, but Rosenblum sounds pretty darn Jewish too. So there's a lot of clues that's a pretty good assumption to make as a common connection. So religion is another example. But anyway, I love this concept of finding the common ground. And I think that if you're really strategic about it, you do the homework up front, it could be the basis for that relationship moving forward. So
it's a low bar. Let me add this. It's a low bar. These attorneys that you'll be contacting, they're not getting many of these letters, if any of these letters. So you need not stalk them on Facebook and drop all of their kids' names and the recent activities that they posted about, but enough that the person kind of perks up and keeps on reading. That is the bar you want to do. You want to stand out, and if you insert just a little bit of a sense of you knowing them and you have some common ground, I think you'll go much further than a template form letter that really says nothing about you taking time to invest even in the beginning into the relationship.
Yeah, it could even be a common friend. You could say, hey, I'm friends with so-and-so. She's friends with you. And she said that we have to meet. So I'm reaching out to you. It could even be something as simple as that. All right, so let's switch gears here. Let's move away from the referral conversation and let's talk about this court of public opinion. Tell me more about that. What exactly do you do there, and why should somebody pay attention? And then I have some specific questions about that.
So we are in an era, unfortunately, it's been exacerbated by social media for the past decade or so, where legal disputes and legal issues rarely stay in the court of law when they are of public interest. And for a long time, attorneys typically have failed to appreciate how impactful the court of public opinion is on their clients and their clients' cases. There are times where and you see this often, where people are quote unquote convicted in the court of public opinion before they even get their first day in court. And that is a travesty. But that happens because attorneys do not do enough work, in my view, enough work to push back on this tidal wave of media coverage, of social media chatter. And it hurt. Our clients are real people. If you're a plaintiff's attorney or a defense attorney, no matter what kind of attorney you are in litigation, you have people you're representing, and they deserve a fair shake in the court of law, but they also deserve a fair shake in the court of public opinion. There are companies and people who are alleged to have done things that ultimately they are vindicated for in the court of law, but their name is associated with that alleged misconduct in the court of public opinion for the rest of their lives. With Google, all you have to do is Google someone's name or your other search engine of choice and find out these allegations, and you see they were never responded to. And it makes you think, well, gee, okay, they were acquitted in a criminal court, or they weren't liable, or it's settled in a civil court, but there's still a bad taste in your mouth. Legal issues impact clients. They hurt their reputations. They hurt their business interests. We all know someone, either personally or in our communities, where they've been the target of bad publicity because of a legal dispute that ultimately went away, and they're still picking up the pieces. So my work in the court of public opinion is focused on helping attorneys and their clients resolve those clients' issues more favorably and perhaps more quickly than would be possible just in a court of law. And it's legal strategy and media strategy, but there's also an ethics issue where you have to make sure that what you're saying is compliant with the ethical rules, namely Rule 3.6, which is trial publicity in most jurisdictions, and defamation. When you talk about allegations that you're making against another party, if you talk about that in a press release or in a public interview or at a public press conference, and you don't couch the allegations as allegations, you make statements suggesting that these things are facts and they're not true, then you could be liable for defamation. And I have seen press releases from the top law firms in the world that I think defame the other side because the attorneys didn't know and didn't care, and the PR people they used didn't know or didn't care enough to think, gee, are we defaming someone by calling them this or regurgitating an allegation in a complaint and copying and pasting it into a press release or mentioning it at a press conference. So the idea here is that most lawyers don't understand the media, nor should they have a need to. And most PR people who understand the media, they don't understand the way that lawsuits flow and litigation flows. And they have difficulty translating what's happening in a court and the allegations in court into language that can be used to persuade the public. And there's also, just in terms of the weeds here, there's a privilege issue where courts across the country are hesitant to give attorney-client privilege to PR firms hired by a law firm to handle PR for the law firm's clients. As an attorney doing this work, I don't really have those same issues. So again, I saw an opportunity to build something to solve some issues and help people in a way that I didn't think they were being helped previously.
Yeah, it's a very interesting crevice that you're shining a light onto. That there really isn't. It's not spoken about a lot, and it's not at the forefront that you would imagine as something that is necessary. But you make a really good case for it. I'm thinking of real life examples of some things that are definitely good examples of court of public opinion. The Harvey Weinstein and all of the women's rights and the Me Too movement, where we can care less if Harvey Weinstein is innocent or guilty, right? Nobody in the public at this point even thinks, like, even if he had gotten off, and been found not guilty, the damage would have been done, right? He definitely did all those things that he was accused of, and it's because of the media and how it's portrayed. And I'm not in any way defending the man. I'm not taking a position here. I just am highlighting some examples. and now with what's going on in Georgia with, what seems to be a completely senseless act of, taking somebody's life. And, what the opinion of the public is already made. It's already, we've already decided who's guilty and who's not guilty. We don't need a trial for that. And that's just highlighting, how powerful this is. I'm thinking of a fictitious series now on Apple TV, Defending Jacob. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to watch it, but it actually, Apple TV still has a lot to learn when it comes to TV cinema, because their shows happen to drag on a lot. Like there's a lot of unnecessary B-roll in there. And, so it takes a time to get through the series, but it's actually kept my wife and I captivated, the storyline of it. And at the time that we're recording this, I haven't seen the finale, so I don't even know what happens. But basically, there's a 14-year-old kid in 8th grade who is accused of murder of his classmate. And it seems like he didn't do it, but you don't know. So I don't know at this point whether he did it or not. But the public has already decided that he was the murderer. And the whole storyline around that, where, he's got a grandfather who's in jail for raping and killing a woman years and years ago. So now they're like, oh, it's in his blood, and, all of that stuff is happening. So it just highlights, the power of the media and the power of public opinion, and how it can affect the jurors, because they're asked if they've heard anything or seen anything, but the reality is that, nobody lives under a rock. So most people probably have, heard news accounts and already are walking into it with a not a clean slate and not a clean mind. So
let me give you two examples recently. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to make sure
go ahead.
I give two examples, one nationally and one locally, that gives you a range, gives people an idea of the range of the court of public opinion. So on a local issue, around this time last year, there was some litigation around a children's theater in Minnesota. I'm pretty sure it was Minneapolis. And there were allegations that some higher ups at the theater, some employees were involved in sexual misconduct, and that the higher up didn't do enough work to root this out. So there was some criminal and there were some civil claims. And toward the end of the civil claim, one of the women who had alleged that she was sexually harmed or assaulted was the theater filed an action for attorney's fees, a claim for attorney's fees against her. So the theater said that because this woman didn't fully prevail on all of her claims, we're entitled to get some money back to pay the attorneys because she wasn't the full victor here. Now, a lawyer making that filing and making that decision looks at the law and says, okay, well, look, this woman didn't fully prevail. We should urge our client to seek legal fees so we can get some money. And I think it's on solid legal ground. They made that court filing and all hell broke loose because the court of public opinion said, wait, she is a rape victim. She's a sexual assault victim. And she won partially. And you're still seeking money from her. And the theater got some negative publicity, had some issues to deal with. And of course, the lawyers didn't put two and two together to say, gee, what we're doing inside of court could impact our client, the theater, outside of court. That's a local example. More recently, to me, an amazing example was the recent court filing in the U.S. soccer litigation, where the U.S. women's team is alleging that they are not paid adequately compared to the men's team. And I know that as we're speaking, that case was recently resolved. But you may remember that the U.S. team, the U.S. soccer organization, made a filing basically saying that the women weren't naturally as athletic and as gifted as the men, and thus they shouldn't be paid the same amount. Well, that filing not only cost one of the higher-ups at U.S. Soccer his job, but the law firm, the big law firm, international law firm that filed that complaint, filed that motion, got tossed by the client, and a new firm was hired. Maybe they weren't tossed, but they stepped back and another law firm came in. So think about that. Again, a filing in court that seems, if you're looking at it purely from a legal perspective, seems right on point, seems like a winning argument. But there's a blind side to how the people that are the audiences that are important to these clients, to the children's theater, to US soccer, how they're going to react to these filings. And there was no real forethought. And it's just amazing to see it happen in plain sight, where attorneys, again, don't understand the ramifications in the public when they do things in court.
Now, what's the solution to these? I mean, if they had a legal right to that filing, right? They, in both of those cases, they were legally in their right to do what they did, and obviously it created bad press. It was bad for them. It hurt them. Are you saying that the alternative is to not do it? In other words, if you had just thought about this and thought about the ramifications, then you could have just not done it. Or is there a better solution? Like, is there a way to pre-frame it in the court of public opinion so that when that motion is made, those preconceived notions or that bad press isn't there because you've already primed the pump, so to speak, of what to expect? Like, where do you stand in that, in that realm? I imagine that you provide advisory services with this. Are you typically advising, hey, don't do this because it's going to cause this? Or are you helping them navigate how to get ahead of it?
I don't like the term, but you can't let the tail wag the dog. If you have a legal claim to make and you think it's good faith and you think it's a winning argument, you have to make it. But you can, and I use the term forethought, you can apply some forethought here and say, okay, gee, what are the scenarios that could arise once we file this? This could be seen as controversial. So maybe we have a statement or we have a message that isn't going to be contrary to what we're filing in court, but that softens the message. So we're taking what is legalese and made in a court filing to affect a legal result. And how do we unpack that and explain it in a way where we can quell some of the anticipated anger? And in some instances, I'm not quite sure you can do anything. So for example, I'm not quite sure the best way to massage an argument that the women aren't as talented as the men's soccer players, don't have the same abilities, thus they should be paid less. I don't know. If I had some more time, I'd tell you. But that is why you have to have some thought, and you'd have your law firm, depending on the size of your firm, if you have some in-house marketing people, or you have an outside marketing consultant, or you have attorneys who know the media, and you work with them and say, okay, how can this be misspun? How can this be used against us in the worst possible way and make us look terrible in the worst possible light? What can we say as we file this to make it clear that there is an argument to be made, but we're making it in a way that doesn't alienate the people who support us and alienate people who are important to our success? And it's not easy. And that's why I do this work. It's not easy because you have to walk that line where you have to support the legal action, but also explain to the general public why you're doing what you're doing and why things might not be what they seem based on the language you're using in the court filing.
Now, can the court of public opinion be used instead of as a avoidance tactic, instead of what a defensive strategy of how do we prevent something from happening? Can it also be used as an offensive strategy? In other words, let's say we've got a PI firm and they want to compel the insurance company to settle, and they're not coming to the table. So this thing's going to go to trial. It's going to be drawn out. They know their client's going to win, but it's not in their, it's for whatever reason, it's in their best interest to get this settled. And it's something that would be good press. Is that an example where you can, take that to the press as a way to start to create some negative media for the other party, to compel them to come to the table for a negotiation?
Absolutely. And I would argue that for many law firms and clients, especially small solos or small law firms, the court of public opinion is the great equalizer. Because you might have a big law firm going up against you representing the defendant or defendants, and they could bury you in paper. They could bury you with associates' time that they love to bill by the hour, so they can just dump documents. They could dump motions on you. But most sophisticated businesses these days are very sensitive to their reputation and their business interests. And if you can shake the tree a little bit, and you could turn up some unfavorable media attention, and that media attention gets input into the social media machine and gets shared widely and leads to maybe more media coverage down the road of that alleged wrongdoing, then suddenly you've done something that you probably couldn't do through the court of law, which is move up the process for which the case will be resolved. Because again, as I alluded to earlier, the court of public opinion can help you resolve cases more quickly because you're not waiting for the back and forth of a complaint, of a motion to dismiss, of an answer, of discovery, summary judgment. All that takes time, years in many instances. But if I can get the media interested today and put you on the defensive tomorrow, then you've got a problem. And I'll go one further. With the ever-shrinking media, it's harder and harder to get your stories told, your client stories told. But social media is a beautiful thing. And just like you can use social media and email newsletters to market to clients and referral sources, you can use social media to send out your client's message. You could set up a website. Famously, way back when in the early 2000s, Martha Stewart, when she was facing her legal issues, she established a website with her legal team and her PR folks. I think it was called marthaspeaks.com. It was an opportunity, controlled environment for her and her people to communicate to her legions of fans about what was going on and why she was innocent or why she thought she was innocent. Same thing can happen now. You have social media. You can set up a Facebook page. Forget even GoFundMe. Set up a Facebook page. Set up a Twitter feed where you are retweeting articles, where you are retweeting people who are supporting your clients. You're building an email newsletter list, and you can email people. So sometimes you can't get into the media, but you can use other marketing channels. You could become your own information source. Again, you want to make sure you're watching ethics and defamation, but you can create this own media environment where you are communicating straight to people that are vital to your success, but also that are vital to the success of the people you're targeting. And if enough of that, defendants or organizations, clients, politicians, customers, vendors, gets wind of what's going on and starts to say thanks but no thanks to that particular organization, you've now turned the screws on them, perhaps without even filing one single court document.
Yeah, and I imagine that the being able to be successful at this requires you to have a real understanding of what is going to get the public's attention and what isn't. You know, like I imagine that it's more of an art or more of a science. I'm not sure which one. Maybe it's an art and a science. You know, to really be able to know the formula, because you don't want to be putting press releases out there. You don't want to be going to the press with something that's not going to take off. I imagine that could backfire or just doesn't make you look good. And it's harder. I mean, you can't predict what's going to go viral on social media. You know, there's a lot of people are anything that's anti big company and or any of these big issues has the potential. But the message has to come out just right for people to be able to resonate with it, stand behind it, and move it forward. Is that what you do? Like I'm just trying to figure out, like, how somebody's who, they're listening to this and they're like, okay, I'm sold. We need to do a better job in the court of public opinion with some of the stuff that we do. How do we navigate that?
Sometimes, so to your point, sometimes it's offense, sometimes it's defense. Offense, it is helping to tell the client's story in a way that triggers media attention so we can shine the spotlight on our client who we believe is who is in the right and who is the one who is leading the charge here. But sometimes the defense posture is important, especially in criminal cases where prosecutors are among the most media savvy attorneys alive. They have relationships with the media. They often leak information that's non-public to the media. And you as a defense attorney or you as a corporate defense attorney need to understand that many plaintiffs and their attorneys are fairly sophisticated. In general, the plaintiff's bar is more sophisticated at media relations and publicity than the defense bar. But they don't have to have a monopoly on media savviness. Corporate defense attorneys can be there and understand how to fight back. Let me give you one brief example. A couple years ago, one of my clients found me because she was the head of a theological institution, and there were some allegations coming out against her that were not favorable to her. They were false, but they were not favorable as well. And she was fired by the organization. And in the first couple of days after the firing, it was all bad publicity for her. And the board of directors for the organization was getting great publicity. They were looking good because they got rid of this problem person. On the media side, that was the problem. On the legal side, she was also negotiating a severance agreement. And her negotiating posture was being damaged by the bad publicity. So her attorneys found me, we got involved, and we turned that around. We got favorable stories for her that put the board of directors on the defense. We had a columnist here in Philadelphia write a favorable story about the client's situation. And all of a sudden, the pendulum swung from not just bad publicity, but bad negotiating position to better publicity and a much better negotiating position. So there are times where even if you're not engaged in true litigation or a true high-profile legal dispute that's playing out in the courts, that the court of public opinion still has a role to play to help your client get what they need from you and from the situation. So it's offense, it's defense. A lot of the concern attorneys have here is there's no safety net. There's no rules of evidence. There's no rules of civil procedure here. You are playing this game on a tightrope with no safety net. And if you, as the attorney, misspeaks, or if it goes viral for the wrong reasons, or something happens, you can deep six your case because you said something wrong, and maybe you're getting bad publicity for you and your law firm because you said something stupid or you didn't give enough thought to what you were saying. So it's fraught with peril, and that's why it's enjoyable, because you are able to walk through this minefield that few attorneys actually dare venture into. And hopefully you're doing it in a way that's educated and effective and helping your client at the end of the day, assuming the client wants the help and wants to go public with their case.
This is all so fascinating, and wish we had more time in the day, but we're reaching the end of our time here. So we're going to have to come back to the third topic. There's no way that we're going to get that covered in this interview of ghostwriting and doing that for law firms. With one final note here, is there anything that you want to share on either of these topics with our audience? Some key takeaway or anything like that. And after that, we'll give you an opportunity to share how to get in touch with you.
My tip would be, my takeaway tip here would be to be strategic. When we're talking about referral marketing, think about the ways that you could engage new referring attorneys or non-attorneys who could be referrals in ways that set you apart from your competition and other attorneys in your field. Be strategic about that and think about it. Think how you could repurpose a newsletter or your recent CLE or speaking engagement. Focus it on attorneys who could send you business and send you cases. And from the media perspective, I would encourage you to be an active reader. When you are reading cases about when you're reading news stories about local legal disputes, just keep an eye out and think about how they're being portrayed, what documents are being referenced, who seems to be being quoted, what is the slant, do you feel like the people involved in the case are getting a fair shake? Just think about these things as you're reading, because you'll become better at being able to talk to the media and engage the media if you have an understanding of what interests them and how they approach certain issues. And from a promotional standpoint, I do offer a free communications audit for law firms. It's at copostrategies.com/audit, where if we'll have an hour together, and if you don't find value in that hour, I'll pay you an hour of your time for that session. My bet is still good if you tell me, if you stump me about a marketing tactic you use for clients that you can't use for referral sources, then I'll donate $100 to charity of your choice. And Moshe, I appreciate you having me on here in this fantastic conversation.
Yeah, Wayne, it's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you joining us and sharing your knowledge and expertise here with the Profit with Law audience. Folks, make sure to follow up with Wayne. If anything that he said is something that is relevant to you, touched you in any way, make that initial contact with him so that you can create that relationship. You never know when it's going to be valuable to you, when you'll need it. And I can think of a lot of examples in many different practice areas where the court of public opinion would be something that is worth looking into. And maybe it's worth just getting on the phone with Wayne and saying, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. What do you think? Is this an opportunity to help my client in some way? And then you can bring that in. So
always happy to help. Always happy to spend some of my own time chatting with people about their issues. Sometimes the issue could be resolved in a 5-minute phone call with some direction as to how to proceed.
Awesome. So folks, you heard it here. Great interview. Wayne, thank you so much. And if this is your first time listening to the show, or if you're a regular listener, but you haven't subscribed, you want to hit that subscribe button in your podcast player. Make sure you get notified every time a new episode goes live. We're here 2 times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays, it's just me on a solo episode with you, and Thursdays bringing you amazing guests like Wayne to share knowledge, information, insight, stories, anything that is going to help you on your law firm growth journey. So thank you so much for tuning in. And one other thing is we thrive on ratings and reviews, and we are always needing more of those. So if you can take a moment out of your day to hit the rate and review button within your podcast player and just put a little thing in there about what you think of the show, give us a number of stars, whatever number you think is appropriate. We would love to see some more ratings and reviews, and I appreciate it if you would do that. And that's basically it. You have a great day, and we will catch you on our next episode. Take care.
Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.